Morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are in the world. This is Gloria White, and I'm coming to you from Utah, USA. Today, before we start in the book of Mark, in the New Testament, in the King James Version of the Holy Bible, I want to talk to you first about compassion. Compassion for your fellow man. There are a lot of people who are struggling with a lot of different things right now. You might be one of them. And you may see people angry or irritable. And you may be tempted to respond in anger, but can try to control yourself and return their anger with your kindness and your compassion. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know what's happened to them or what's about to happen to them. You don't know what's going on in their life. Has their rent been paid? Has it not been paid? Are they sick? Or they have family that's sick? Do they have little kids that need things and they can't get them for them? Do they have elderly parents living with them and they've lost their job and can't pay the rent to keep a roof over all of their heads? You don't know what anyone's situation is just by looking at them. You cannot tell. But what I can tell you is that Christ would have compassion. And that is what we should be like. We should have compassion for our fellow man. And I want to encourage everyone to pray that this whole situation with people who have not been able to pay their rent and the landlords, because they can't collect rent, can't pay their mortgage to the bank and may lose their whole property where these people are living. And they may wind up being evicted anyway. Then there was an executive order signed by the president that locked evictions until the end of December. But the landlords have hired attorneys and are going to court to say this isn't even constitutional, that you should be able to say we have to give people a free place to live and we can't pay our own, things that we need to pay. So how is this right? And I have to agree with them. But I also have to have compassion for the people who are in those homes. And now the executive order only goes into the end of December. And that means that a lot of people are going to become homeless in winter. It'll be winter. And in the north and northeastern states, and even, down to almost to the Gulf, it gets freezing cold. And you can't even imagine. I mean, I was homeless for 5 days one time, sleeping in my truck. And it wasn't easy. It's like, where do you go to the bathroom? Can you even get a shower? What do you get? Where do you get something to eat? You know, can you have anything warm to eat? Is there anywhere you can go and get in out of the cold to even warm up for 5 minutes? Or are you outside in the brutal cold just 24/7? How do you stay warm? How do you care for your elderly? How do you care for your children? Maybe you have pets. What do you do with them? Being homeless is a very hard thing. And I want everyone to have compassion for their fellow man. And I want to remind you that Christ has compassion on you and me. And that we should be Christ-like. So when someone is ugly with you, or short-tempered, or seem angry, then maybe you need to stop and think about what Christ said about if they slap you on one cheek, to turn the other one. What he was saying was have compassion. That if your brother should come angry at you for something you don't know about and you're not sure about why they're being that way, try to use compassion and kindness and just turn your other cheek and let them smack you on that one too. Maybe they'll feel better. You might not feel that great, but you know what? We don't know what that other person's going through, and sometimes a kind word makes all the difference in the world. You know, you can see somebody all puffed up and huffed up and just angry, and then you say something kind to them, and it's like you crack the shell, and all this stress and worryation and worry that they're carrying around with them and the situation that they're in, that it just breaks them and melts them. Sometimes it doesn't, but that's what Christ would do. He would be compassionate. And I want us to be compassionate, and I want to pray for a solution so that people, millions and millions and millions of people, don't wind up in the street in the middle of winter and or be homeless in the dead of summer, you know, in a place where it's really hot. But so try to have compassion on your fellow man and try to look at it from their point of view and consider what might be going on with them and what kind of worryation and stress they're under. So, with that said, I love you. And chapter 5, book of Mark. And they came over unto the other side of the sea, into the country of Gadarenes. And when he, Jesus, was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because he had been often bound with fetters or shackles and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder or pulled apart by him, and the fetters broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him, and cried with a loud voice, and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee, or plead with by God, that thou torment me not. And he said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. And he asked him, What is thy name? And the man answered, he answered and saying, My name is Legion, for we are many. And he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. It's not this man speaking, but it's the demons in him that are pleading with Jesus not to send them out of the country. What was important about not sending him out of the country, I have no idea. But now there was nigh or near unto the mountains a great herd of swine feeding, and all the devils or demons besought him or pleaded, saying, Send us into the swine, that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave or permission. And the unclean spirits went out, and entered into the swine. And the herd ran violently down a steep slope into the sea. There were about 2,000, and were choked or drowned in the sea. 2,000 demons in this man. And the demons pleading with Jesus because they know he's going to expel them. Believe me, the demons know who Jesus is, and they know the Word of God. Remember, their fathers, the fallen angels, were in heaven with God. Verse 14, And they that fed the swine fled, and told it in the city and in the country. And they went out to see what it was that was done or had happened. And they come to Jesus and see that he was he that was possessed with the demon or devil, and had the legion, sitting and clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And they that saw it told them how it befell him that was possessed with the devil or the demon, and also concerning the swine. And they began to pray or plead with him to depart out of their coast or region. They're pleading with Jesus to go away. And when when Jesus was come into the ship, he, the man that had been possessed with the devil or demon, prayed him that he might be with him. He wanted to go with Christ. He had just freed him from all these demons that tortured him day and night. Howbeit Jesus suffered him not. He didn't give him permission, but saith unto him, Go home to thy friends, and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee, and hath had compassion on thee. And he departed and began to publish or proclaim in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him, and all men did marvel. So Jesus sent him away to spread the word. And when Jesus was passed over again by ship unto the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh or near unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers out of a synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet, and besought him greatly, or begged him earnestly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people, or a great multitude of people, followed him and thronged him. And a certain woman, which had an issue, or a flow of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, or no better, but rather grew worse. When she had heard of Jesus, came into the press, or the crowd behind, and touched his garment. For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of this plague, or this affliction. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue or power had gone out of him, turned him about in the press, or he turned around in the crowd, and said, Who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and thou sayest, Who touched me? And he looked round about to see her that had done this thing, who had touched him. And the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him, and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace, and be whole of thy plague, or thy affliction. While he yet spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, people, Thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master or teacher any further? As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Peter and James and John, the brother of James. So suffered, meaning he didn't allow anyone but Peter, James, and John to go with him. And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly, And when he was come in, he saith unto them, Why make ye this ado and weep, this commotion? The damsel or child is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel and them that were with him, and entered in where the damsel was lying. And he took the damsel by the hand, and said unto her, Talitha cumi, which is being interpreted, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. Remember when they went to Peter's house, and Peter's wife's mother was ill with a fever in bed, and Jesus went in there and caught her by the hand, and the fever went away immediately, and she got up and ministered to them? Now here's this little girl who has passed away, and everybody's crying and mourning already. And Jesus tells them, go away, just the mom and dad come with me, and Peter, John, and James. And they go into this room where this little girl is laying dead, and Jesus says, she's not dead, she's just asleep. And he reaches down and touches her hand. Just with his hand. And talks to her and says, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years. And they were astonished with great astonishment. And he charged them, or commanded them strictly, that no man should know it, and commanded that something should be given her to eat. Now, do you think they kept silent? I mean, that would be pretty hard to do, don't you think? Chapter 6. And he went out from thence and came in unto his own country, and his disciples followed him. And when the Sabbath day was come, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many hearing him were astonished, saying, From whence hath this man these things? And what wisdom is this which is given unto him, that even such mighty works are wrought by his hands, or performed by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Jose, and Judah, and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? And they were offended by him. And Jesus said unto them, A prophet is not without honor, but in his own country, and among his own kin or relatives, and in his own house. Meaning, when he went, when he had gone back to his hometown, that's how they treated him. And this is what Jesus said: a prophet is without honor. Is not without honor, but in his own house. He's without honor in his own country, among his own relatives, and in his own house. And he could there do no mighty work, save except that he laid his hands upon a few sick folk or people and healed them. And he marveled because of their unbelief. And he went round about the villages teaching. And he called unto him the 12, and began to send them forth by 2 and 2, and gave them power or authority over unclean spirits, and commanded them that they should take nothing for their journey, save a staff only, except a staff only, no scrip, that's money, no bread, no money in their purse or their money belt, and be shod with sandals, and not put on 2 coats or robes. And he said unto them, In what place soever ye enter into an house, there abide till ye depart from that place. So wherever you're taken in, when you go, stay there, and they'll, provide what you need. And whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear you, when ye depart thence, shake off the dust under your feet for a testimony, or a witness against them. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. So, when they went into a city, and what Jesus was saying was, if they deny God, wipe the dust off your feet, shake the dust off your feet, and it'll be better for the people that were in Sodom and Gomorrah sinning, so much so that God came down and destroyed it, except for Lot and his wife and 2 daughters. And so that's how bad it would be to deny, them and the disciples that would show up somewhere. This is what Jesus is telling them, to just go on about your business, but wipe the dust off your shoes when you leave. And they went out and they preached that men should repent. And they cast out many devils or demons, and anointed with oil many that were sick, and healed them. And King Herod heard of him, for his name was spread abroad. And he said that John the Baptist was risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. Others said that it is Elias, and others said that it is a prophet, or as one of the prophets. But when Herod heard thereof, he said, it is John, whom I beheaded. He is risen from the dead. For Herod himself had sent forth and laid hold upon John, that's John the Baptist, and bound him in the prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife, for he had married her. For John had said unto Herod, it is not lawful for thee to have thy brother's wife. Therefore Herodias had a quarrel against him, or was against John, and would have killed him, but she could not. Herod wouldn't let her. For Herod feared John, knowing that he was a just man and an holy man, and observed him, or protected him. And when he heard him, he did many things, and heard him gladly. And when a convenient day was come, that Herod on his birthday was made a supper to his lords, or for his nobles, high captains, or officers, and chief estate, or men of Galilee. And when the daughter of the said Herodias came in and danced, and pleased Herod and them that sat with him, the king said unto the damsel, ask of me whatsoever thou wilt, or you want, and I will give it thee. And he sware unto her, whatsoever thou ask of me, I will give it thee, unto the half of my kingdom. And she went forth and said unto her mother, what shall I ask? And she said, the head of John the Baptist. And she came in straightway with haste unto the king, and asked, saying, I will that thou give me by and by, in a charger, or on a platter, the head of John the Baptist. And the king was exceeding sorry, yet for his oath's sake, and for their sakes which sat with him, he would not reject her. He didn't deny her request. And immediately the king sent an executioner, and commanded his head be brought. And he went and beheaded him in the prison, and brought his head in a charger on a platter, and gave it to the damsel, and the damsel gave it to her mother. And when his disciples heard of it, They came and took up his corpse and laid it in a tomb. And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said unto them, Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place and rest for a while. Or come aside into a deserted place and rest for a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. They were so busy they didn't even have time to eat. And they departed into a desert or deserted place by ship privately or by themselves. And the people saw them departing, and many knew him and ran afoot thither out of all cities, and out went them, arrived before them, and came together unto him. And Jesus, when he saw, Jesus, when he came out, saw much people, or multitudes of people, and was moved with compassion toward them, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. Could you imagine sitting there listening to Jesus personally talking to you? Wow. And when the day was now far spent, his disciples came unto him and said, This is a desert place, and now the time is far past, or it's already the hour is already late. Send them away that they may go into the country round about and into the villages and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat. He answered and said unto them, Give ye them to eat. And they say unto him, What, shall we go and buy 200 penny worth of bread, or denaro, and give them to eat? He saith unto them, How many loaves have ye? Go and see. And when they knew, they say, 5 and 2 fishes. So you have 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And he commanded them to make all sit down by companies or groups upon the green grass. And they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by 50s. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, he looked up to heaven, and blessed and brake the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And the 2 fishes divided he among them all. And they did all eat, and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments and of the fishes. And they that did eat of the loaves were about 5,000 men. And straightway he constrained his disciples, or compelled his disciples, to get into the ship, and to go to the other side, before unto Bethsaida, while he sent away the people, or the multitude. And when he had sent them away, he departed into a mountain to pray. And when eve or evening was come, the ship was in the midst of the sea, and he alone on the land. And he saw them toiling and rowing, for the wind was contrary unto them, or against them. And about the 4th watch of the night he cometh unto them, walking upon the sea, and would have passed by them. And when they saw him walking upon the sea, they supposed it had been a spirit, and cried out, or they thought it was a ghost. For they all saw him, and were troubled. And immediately he talked with them, and saith unto them, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. Or, take courage, It is I. It is I am. And he went up unto them into the ship, and the wind ceased, and they were sore amazed, or really truly amazed in themselves beyond measure, and wondered or marveled. For they considered not the miracle of the loaves, for their heart was hardened. And when they had passed, or crossed, or when they had crossed over, they came into the land of Gennesaret, and drew to the shore, or anchored to the shore, and ran through that whole region round about, and began to carry out in beds those that were sick, where they heard he was. And whithersoever he entered, into villages or cities or country, they laid the sick in the streets or the marketplaces, and besought or begged him that they might touch it, that they might touch it, if, excuse me, that they might touch, if it were but the border of his garment. And as many as touched him were made whole. So just him passing by, his clothes had healing power in his clothes, his whole being, even the clothes that he wore. Wow, huh? That's pretty powerful, huh? Our God is amazing, isn't he? And I can't imagine that their hearts would be hardened after all those, the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes fed 5,000 people, and they picked up 12 baskets worth of food. How could their heart be hardened? I mean, I really have a hard time with that, don't you? But, sometimes people do good things, and, other people just don't care. But don't be one of those people. And as always, I love you.